Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising on the 3rd of October, 2025. As we ponder, as we do each week, unfolding events and how we need to navigate through the deepening thicket of world affairs. I want to begin today by making an announcement that many of you already know about because we've been in touch various ways about the State of the World Forum. And that is that we've made the decision to take the State of the World Forum scheduled for December 14th through 18th online. We will not be convening in Washington, D.C. at the Omni Shoreham Hotel, as we've been indicating to you for many, many months now. We have come to the conclusion that it is not safe for our speakers and our participants to travel to the United States if they're from abroad, or even within the United States if they live domestically. The proximate causation for our decision was something that happened last Saturday when President Trump revoked the U.S. visa for President Gustavo Petro of Colombia. President Petro was in New York for the UN General Assembly previous week. He made some remarks at a press event where he said that U.S. military personnel should disobey President Trump if they were ordered into Gaza, because what the Israelis and the United States are doing in Gaza is genocide. You may know that Colombia was the first country to break off diplomatic relations with Israel because of the genocide last year. And President Petro has been one of the most outspoken and articulate national leaders in the world about what is taking place in the Middle East. President Trump concurrently escalated visa restrictions against any Colombian nationals seeking to travel to the United States. And as we understand it, also escalated visa restrictions from neighboring Latin American countries adjacent to Colombia. We were in the process, as you all know, of inviting and actually getting visas for a delegation of 7 Kogi tribes people living in the high altitudes of the mountains just in the north east of Colombia, a tribe that has been living up in those mountains for the last 500 years in pristine ecological conditions, but also so far from the colonial conquest that they were able to preserve intact the deep spiritual lineage going back thousands of years that they have refined over time. And over the last several decades, the Kogi have been coming down from the mountain and warning the little brothers to the north and others about the damage that they were doing to the environment, the damage that we're doing to each other, and calling upon us to return to alignment with Mother Earth. They consider the State of the World Forum to be a sacred transmission, and we're wanting to come to the forum and bringing a 10-year-old girl that has received a very special message from Gaia that they wanted to enunciate to the world at the forum. So in many ways, the emerging relationship with the Kogi was foundational for an enterprise, as you all know, that is seeking to ignite worldwide what we've come to call the multi-intelligence revolution. The decision by the US State Department and the White House created a situation that for Tom Eddington and I, as the leaders of the forum, we needed to make a decision. Do we just carry on regardless of what's happening externally, or do we come to a realization that we needed to change our tactics? And it is this change of tactics to a State of the World Forum that will now be exclusively online that I want to dwell upon so that our whole community can understand more deeply that we ain't in Kansas anymore. And the definition of insanity, as we all know, is wanting to do the same thing over and over, but expecting a different result. We can't do that anymore. What is explicitly clear, if you're paying attention at all to the news, that we are experiencing an attempted coup d'etat in the United States as the President of the United States, operating from the Oval Office of the White House, is implementing patterns of behavior and political intentions designed exclusively to dismantle the civic institutions that undergird American democracy, use the military domestically for the first time in American history, which is a violation of federal law and the entire ethos of the United States, and deploying repressive measures that are increasingly categorizing free speech as hate speech, if that free speech is being used in any way to criticize either Donald Trump or the policies of the United States, especially with Israel as it co-creates the genocide that we all know is taking place in Gaza. So I want to unpack what is happening so that we can very deeply move forward with the confidence that we are being both ruthlessly realistic about what's taking place, but also very creative about how we effectuate our goals. Because the strategic intent of the State of the World Forum, as we're recreating it from what we were able to accomplish between 1995 and the year 2000, with Mikhail Gorbachev and Jane Goodall, who, as you all know, passed just 2 days ago in Los Angeles on a journey to California and around the United States, where she was indefatigably campaigning for ecological alignment with Mother Earth and the audacity of hope, which was at the center of who she was as she courageously, for over 60 years, beginning when she was in Gombe National Park in Tanzania, researching the chimpanzees, as we all know, until she passed 2 days ago at the age of 91. I considered her a friend and colleague, and she was part of the original State of the World Forum. And with Claire Garrison, she developed the Whole Child Initiative, and they worked together as forming one of the major strategic initiatives of the original State of the World Forum to provide aid and food and medical supplies to disadvantaged children all over the world. So with the passing of Jane Goodall, we lost a world treasure, someone who I counted as a friend and a mentor and an inspiration to the world. You know, one of the privileges of my life has been the opportunity to interact with and work with some of the great souls of our time. Mikhail Gorbachev, as you all know, and numerous others. So I want to just note the passing of Jane, and it has deepened my commitment to the State of the World Forum. We were in touch with her about speaking at the forum, and we were blessed by her in our endeavors. And I wanted to bring her energy in to our midst today, and to signal that our commitment strategically to catalyze this multi-intelligence revolution and to enable humanity at this time to learn the language of consciousness, to learn how to speak intelligibly with non-human intelligences, whether it's the intelligences of nature and the interspecies communication, the intelligence of the cosmos as it's manifesting through extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings who are present as part of our reality, and which will enable us to communicate more effectively and harmoniously with artificial intelligence, which is very quickly outstripping human capacity to control. This emanates, as you all know, from the four consequential truths of our time, that we are confronted by escalating planetary ecological collapse. We are confronted by deepening instability and turbulence at every level of human affairs. We've unleashed artificial intelligence, and the cosmic intelligences are here on Earth. And that means that humanity, for the first time in our entire evolutionary journey, needs now consciously to understand that we are being frequented, challenged, confronted by multiple intelligences, not our own. So you have human intelligence, you have nature intelligence, you have artificial intelligence, and you have cosmic intelligence. That's what's up for humanity. And that revolution of consciousness and capacity is what the State of the World Forum is dedicated to catalyzing around the world, because nothing less than a change in consciousness will suffice for humanity to save itself. What is extraordinary in the face of our reality, that we're teetering on the brink of self-destruction and almost unimaginable opportunities for renewal are available to us is what is actually happening in our political leadership. And that's what I want to dwell in for a few minutes today. So we take in that while we need to be strategically clear, we also need to be tactically very adaptive so that we can effectuate our goals. And if we're in a situation, since we are in a situation in the United States of an attempted coup against the democratic institutions, by going online, we're optimizing our capacity to adapt, to be resilient, and to creatively communicate our message to the world. An in-person event can be shut down. People can be stopped at the border very easily, as we're seeing all around us. And what we are witnessing is what I would call a synergy between implosion and escalatory dominance in the United States, in the Middle East, and in Europe simultaneously. And that's what we need to understand, and that's what I would like to lay out. Because the chaos has vectors. And if we can understand the vectors that are creating the chaos that we're experiencing, we'll be able to manage our internal equilibrium, which needs to be inversely proportional to the chaos, or we spin out of control with stress and we become reactive in our behavioral patterns. And that's what's going to do us in. So let me start with the United States. And then I'll move to the Middle East. And then I'll move to Europe. And then I'll make some global comments. And then we'll retire to the after chat for additional conversation. So President Trump is engaging in the deconstruction of the democratic institutions that undergird our democracy, as I said. If you saw what happened just yesterday in Chicago, where in the middle of the night, hundreds of ICE agents and police and National Guard, backed up by SWAT teams and multiple vehicles and helicopter kind of gunships in the sky, broke down the doors of a immigrant apartment building in the south side of Chicago, dragged people out of their beds, some of whom were naked, including children, dragged them out of the building, put even the children in handcuffs, and those that were naked had to sit there in handcuffs for hours. Some were taken off in the paddy wagons. And the attitude of the ICE agents was basically, fuck them. That's what happened in Chicago yesterday. I live in Washington, D.C. Wherever you go in Washington, they're National Guard. President Trump, in his speech which can only be called deranged, to the assembled generals called in from all over the world to Guantanamo, Virginia, said that he was going to be redeploying U.S. military forces from abroad to the United States to train them in the big cities with coercive force. That's what's happening in America. There's been a sustained attack on universities, on the media, on civic institutions, starting with an orchestrated campaign to shut down the protests and the demonstrations around the genocide in Gaza. So they've effectively shut down free speech in academia, in the mainstream media. They're taking over CBS News. They just bought out TikTok, and it had nothing to do, TikTok had nothing to do with the fact that the Chinese owned it. It had everything to do with the fact that TikTok is the primary social media app that young people use. And it was showing videos of the genocide in Gaza. That's now going to stop because Larry Ellison, one of the richest men in the world, the founder of Oracle, which was founded to work with the CIA, is just bought it out to repress TikTok users from any kind of free speech. That's what's happening in America. Simultaneously with this, what I would call escalatory dominance, coercively breaking down institution, what's happening simultaneously is an implosion. Trump is obviously increasingly unwell. No one knows exactly what's going on. The Epstein scandal is percolating away, the largest and most insidious scandal in the history of the United States. They've just released more files. The Congress is demanding release of files, and they have the votes. So the ground is shaking from underneath the White House with the Epstein file and the pedophilia on videos, in testimony by the young women who are not only underage, but in some cases prepubescent, only 8, 9, 10 years old, that were molested and raped by Donald Trump, by Jeremy Epstein, and by others. That's what's percolating up from underneath the White House. Increasingly, the judiciary is beginning to react back. The mayor of Portland, in the face of the ICE National Guard military onslaught, reacted in a very courageous way. The governor of Illinois, the mayor of Chicago are doing the same. So you have playing out in America both an attempted coup, scandals that are destabilizing the political class, and an electorate and a citizenry that are increasingly aware that this is taking place and beginning to organize accordingly. That's an extraordinary algorithm of the chaos that we're experiencing in the USA. The deeper the crisis, the greater the opportunities. And it's our capacity to understand that that's the dynamic that's in play that gives us the sovereignty, the acuity to navigate through what it is that's coming. In the Middle East, you see the same thing. The Israelis now are in a 7-front war and preparing with the United States to attack Iran again. If you're tracking the news, the United States is moving aircraft, battleships, oil tankers to the Middle East, just like it did the last time the Israelis and the United States attacked Iran in June. It's building up again. The Israelis ordered the final and complete evacuation of Gaza City yesterday, as their bulldozers and their bombs are completely flattening one of the most ancient cities in the world. Gaza City has been around for probably 10,000 years. And the Israelis, with active US support, are blowing it to smithereens. And have come up with a plan to completely rebuild Gaza essentially into Trump Tower, because Trump will be the chairman of the board. I can't imagine anything more obscene than what's taking place in Gaza between the United States and Israel. And at the same time, global, European, and most especially now, in the United States, support for Israel and what it's doing is completely imploding. It's an extraordinary dynamic between escalatory dominance in the Middle East. Netanyahu is trying to do in the Middle East what Donald Trump is trying to do in the USA: take it over, sow chaos, militarize it, so they can exert dominance. And yet simultaneously, the ground is falling away right underneath their feet. And even evangelical Christians in America, the foundation of support for Israel, are beginning to question. And the exemplar par excellence of this was Charlie Kirk, a rising star, an evangelical, totally pro-Zionist. And then all of a sudden, he began to really look at it and was becoming increasingly critical of Israel, as has been Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon, others in the alt-right evangelical movement, and even some of the commentators on Fox News, like Megyn Kelly, are saying, wait a minute, What are we doing supporting Israel again? Why is the Israeli government telling the US government what to do? And that's caused Netanyahu to create an eighth front in his war, and that is against the American people to squash any free speech. And that's why they've taken over TikTok. Netanyahu talks about it. That's why they're taking over CBS, so they can continue to repress free speech in America because they see the bottom falling out of any kind of support for the genocide against the Gaza Palestinians and against the West Bank. So the more the escalatory dominance, the less solidity is underneath their feet, and the more frenetic they're both becoming. It's a derangement of the psyche. It's the ultimate expression of what Carl Jung called ego inflation, which I'll get to in a moment. But I want to talk about what's also now going on in Europe. The same thing is happening. The Ukrainians are dramatically losing the war. The Russians have inexorably won every battle. They're taking more and more real estate day by day. They've just essentially broken the defense lines in Pokrovsk, which was the last city they need to take before they take the entire Donbass. They're closing in on Zaporozhye, the nuclear power plants, the largest nuclear power complex at any place in the world. And yet, rather than recognize the obvious and sue for peace, the neocons in the United States and the neocons in Europe are escalating. And now what's up is whether the United States is going to give the Ukrainians Tomahawk cruise missiles and other missiles capable of traveling from Ukraine deep into Russia, including Moscow, with massive warheads. There's increasing discussion of going nuclear. We could be headed into World War III, everybody. Because as the bottom is falling out from under the Ukrainians and the Americans and the NATO at a military level, they're escalating. And increasingly talking about a nuclear exchange. As world opinion completely deserts Israel, including in the United States, Israel and the United States are preparing for the next war against Iran, putting hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in biometric concentration camps, as the Gaza Humanitarian Fund is calling it, biometric concentration camps. And in the United States, we've got now the president saying that he's going to be deploying more and more military in American cities. That's the chaos that we're dealing with. And the two culprits, as it were, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu are suffering acutely from psychic inflation. And this is what happens when an individual uncritically absorbs an archetypal formation. It gives them inordinate power, but it ultimately destroys their soul, and they end up in a paroxysm of destruction. What is called psychologically the Samson complex, where rather than stopping what they're doing, their unconscious contents, long repressed, filling their conscious aspects of their psyche with destructive impulses, brings the house down. We all feel it. You go into your deeper intuition, you can feel that the chaos is building up. People are losing the capacity to control the narrative. They've long lost any capacity for a meaning framework that allows them to connect the dots. And the chaos then becomes a consuming momentum. And then somebody at some level does something really stupid, probably by mistake. But because there's so much pressure in the system, there's so much isolation as people are getting deconstructed from the community support that maintains ethics. And that's important. Ethics are historically cultivated by community. And if you break down community and you isolate people, you destroy to a very large degree people's capacity to discern ethical norms. And if you have someone possessed at the helm, like a Netanyahu in Israel or a Donald Trump in the United States, you have a very serious situation on your hands. And that's why when Tom and I were reflecting on how do we really move forward with an event that we designed to be in Washington, D.C., within a mile or two of the White House, we realized that the more strategic pathway forward is to go online. And this is what we're now going to unfold. And I want to make a few comments of that, and then we'll close our session for today. Think about the possibilities, everybody. Instead of putting all of our attention on one event costing a serious amount of money, fraught with dangers at the border and from police intervention at various levels, because we want to talk about genocide in Gaza. We want to talk about the violations of free speech. We want to talk about the assault on women and people of gender fluidity. We're not looking away from what needs to be talked about. But if you go online and you democratize it and you decentralize it, you're harder to control. And then in 2026, we could convene the State of the World Forum outside the United States, in countries that are still upholding democratic institutions. And we're in conversation with a number of countries already. One of the things we're thinking about is reframing Humanity Rising, this broadcast. to a platform serving not only Humanity Rising and Ubiquity University, but the State of the World Forum and the multi-intelligence revolution. Just imagine how we could begin to adapt this as we move into the future with broadcasts, different parts of the world, different channels, all around supporting this multi-intelligence revolution. We want to articulate this award so that people worldwide know that this is a serious proposition about how human beings now interact with nature intelligence, cosmic intelligence, artificial intelligence. And if we have a remuneration of 100,000 or 500,000 or $1 million, we begin to get the attention of serious practitioners. And if at the same time we're working with our colleagues at Ubiquity University in our extraterrestrial studies program, which is a partnership with transdimensional mapping, the premier remote viewing organization in the world, to actively teach people how to engage at a practical level in interspecies communication, multiple intelligence dialogue. And we do this worldwide. So there's not one center to the forum. There's as many centers as there are people that care about the human future and are taking the time to learn the language of consciousness. Just think about what we could do. It's so exciting to me that now that we've made the decision to go tactically resilient and adaptive, I'm filled with all the possibilities before us, and I want to invite all of you into it. And let me close with the kicker, ladies and gentlemen. Three-Eye Atlas. I'm sure some of you, if not most of you, have been hearing in the news and on the YouTube channels this increasing awareness and fascination that there is an object coming directly at our solar system, traveling at 160,000 miles an hour. 130,000 miles an hour. That is about ready to hit the same distance from Earth as the sun is, 93 million miles away, sometime in the next couple of weeks. Three-Eye Atlas. And it's not a natural object. It's not an asteroid. It's not a comet. It's not a meteor. It appears to be intelligently designed. It's oblong. And Bertie Jaworski, the premier remote viewer in the world today, just released a video of her remote viewing of this object. I watched it this morning. And what's coming toward Earth for the first time in our collective memory is a non-natural, consciously designed object. And I want everyone to take this in for a moment. The State of the World Forum did not come out of my mind or Tom's mind or anybody's mind. It came out of an ayahuasca journey in the jungles of the Amazon with a message to recreate the form. We've done that in submission to that higher will. And in the Kogi, we're informed about the State of the World Forum. And they said, this is historic, and we want to come with a major delegation to give a message to the world. And now we have an object coming toward the Earth at 130,000 miles an hour that'll be showing up visually over the next couple of months, that was designed by an intelligence not our own, that may have been traveling, they don't know, maybe for billions of years. Why and how has it shown up now? When we talk about the multi-intelligence revolution, my friends, we're talking about the most important conversation any of us can be having at this time on Earth, as the authoritarian regimes both engage in escalatory dominance and are imploding at the same time. The more we are now in tune with these other intelligences, all of which are here for benign reasons, having concluded that humanity, for whatever sets of reasons, can't make it on its own. We seem to be intent on destroying ourselves. They're showing up to help us. Our redemption isn't going to come from the governments. I can guarantee you that. Our redemption is going to come from us, the people, paying attention to what's happening and moving forward in a way that aligns with the planetary intelligences that are impinging upon us at this moment for our redemption. And that's why it's so important for us to be strategically completely clear about what it is we're doing. We're in the same moment as Jesus was in Gethsemane. For knowing what was ahead, he had the humility to say, not my will, but thine be done. We're in that same moment. What is now going to be transacted, if we are to save ourselves, is not going to come through human intelligence alone, but through our humility in submitting to higher wills. And as we engage in that kneeling upon the earth, kissing the ground, understanding that we are no longer capable of saving ourselves, and we need nature, we need the cosmos in ways we can't even imagine. The State of the World Forum begins to emerge as a catalytic ingredient, among others, that can enable us in this moment to learn the mother tongue and be guided by intelligences not our own. And the deepest privilege that I have in my life is coming to the point of that understanding, that we are mere instruments of a divine intelligence that is working in and through all the chaos we see around us for a redemption that will take us into a co-creativity with these other intelligences that could fashion a world worthy of our children under the seventh generation. So stay tuned. Check us out at stateoftheworld.forum. Everyone, please register for this online event. Come together wherever you are in the world to create revolution, to secure the human future. So thank you, everyone. It's always a pleasure. I love you all very much. We'll now retire to the after chat for deeper discussion. And I'll see you next week with another aspect of the State of the World Forum as we prepare for our online event, December 14th through 18th. Thank you, everyone. Love you all. Bye for now.